Okay, yep, there we go. I see it. Okay, we are recording. And do we have a flag, or are we just going to wing it?
Wing it.
All right. Okay. All right.
All right.
Oh, look at that. That's great. Okay.
Nice.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Okay. Like the flag graphic. Photo.
Nice touch.
Yeah. Okay, so now we are on to public comment. I did see, I guess
we have to do roll call.
Oh, roll call. Okay. Sorry, Shannon, I couldn't see you.
That's okay.
The flag is still up.
How do I unshare?
She's still.
All right. Felix Raimondo.
Yes.
Okay. Carol Smith.
Yes.
Okay. Kyle Elliott. Janine Riley.
Yes, here.
Jane Flanagan.
He's joining us shortly, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how to get the screen back there.
We can't get the flag off now. That's okay. It's very patriotic. At least it's nothing inappropriate, right? So, okay. Oh, there it goes.
There we go.
Okay. So I see we have two people, and I don't know if they would like to speak during the public comment, or if they're just here to listen. If anyone from the public would like to speak, you can please unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Scott Lankstein.
Hi, Scott. And Scott, where do you reside in the borough?
At 200 West Elm Street.
Okay. All right. And how can we help you tonight?
I don't know if you remember, Janine, we spoke probably
Yes, I
a long time ago.
Your name, I can't see you, but I do remember your name.
Yes. Just kind of coming back to revisit, I know I attended a meeting a little over a year ago. I forget now when it was exactly. I know you weren't there, and talked about kind of the question around the prompt pay discount and how we're not being treated the same as the other accounts.
Yes, but this is for the grand.
Correct.
And I do remember, I guess, and Lauren, I'm going to punt to you a little bit, because I remember we discussed this and I brought this up, and I believe you guys did research on it at that point in time as to why essentially, and the question is just, again, kind of for public, because I am a little bit more familiar with this. I think the board is in general. Essentially, the prompt payment discount, and correct me, Lauren or Mike, if I'm incorrect, it's per ratepayer. And because the grand pays as one unit, right, for all the EDUs, we can't, or we have not been able to pass along that prompt payment discount, or, early payment discount to each individual condominium owner at the grand. And
right. So when the prompt pay discount, when the rates were changed a few years back, I believe it was, the prompt pay discount was changed to be per account, and so there is one prompt pay discount given for each account. I believe the Grand has 2 or 3 separate accounts and several hundred EDUs. So the prompt pay discount would apply to each account, but not to each EDU. So that's all part of the rate study that was done by HRG back when the rates were changed.
And we looked into, I think, at that, when we discussed it last, whatever that was, whether there was any way we can get around that. And I honestly, Scott, forget what our research was, but I
That's
do
okay.
remember we looked it up. Lauren, do you remember what it was, or do we have to revisit that research? Like I said, I know we talked about it.
Yeah, we did talk about it. And ultimately the decision was made by the board to switch to this per account metric. I'd have to pull up, I think we did a memo, but it's been the better part
It's
of
been
2
a little
years, I
while.
think, since I looked at that. So I can dig that up, but my recollection was that this is the way that this was done was a decision that was made by the board during the adoption of the excuse me, the amended rates and the HRG rate study.
And so that essentially we were unable to pass it along because of the structure, right?
There was a structure that the board adopted. It was essentially a policy choice that the board made back when the rates were changed.
Okay.
So this is the structure that the board selected.
And then this would be, so I guess we have to look, so if we were to consider what Scott wanted, how would we go about doing that? Is that possible to be done at this point in time? Is that something we can, as a board, consider?
It's purely a board policy decision. If the board wants to change the policy, they can. I would only recommend that you consult with the person who did your rate study to determine the financial
Absolutely.
impact of making that change.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Okay. Well,
Can I ask you a question, Mike? Maybe you can answer this. What is the function of of this early discount for paying?
What is the function of it?
Yeah, what historically, why do we even have it?
I think historically, the reason for these early discounts were that authorities were trying to make sure that they were getting their payments as quickly as possible, since our revenue may only come in if we're billing quarterly, or if we're billing yearly, or if we're billing semi-annually. So I think it was a way of sort of ensuring that you got earlier payments. I think that the early pay discounts have kind of been phased out by a lot of authorities because, depending on your billing cycle, the cash flow issue is not as significant as it might have been at some time in history. So that's why I think most of them are starting to phase these out.
No, and I know that I'm a holdout on the love of the Carol shaking her head. I do have a fond, just in the Riley household personally, we have an affinity for the prompt payment discount. Scott, what I will say is, because Mike and Lauren have said it's purely a policy decision. If let me say this, obviously there's a lot going on right now with us.
Yes.
If the board is so inclined to reach out and see what the financial impact of this would be, I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to see what it would be for us and how it would affect us. Like I said, but I know that I am a stronghold and probably one of the few in the prompt payment discount camp. If the board is inclined to reach out to whoever, I'm sorry, Lauren, you said who did our rate study, and HRG?
HRG did the rate study, right? So yeah, you'd have to investigate the financial impact. Yeah.
That was Russ, right? Russ?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Russ
I know Russ, but I don't know his company.
Yes.
So if, like I said, if the board is willing to reach out, I'm fine with reaching out to see what that would do for us as it relates to the grand, and any other condominium owners. I'm fine to go ahead and see what the financial impact of that would be to us and whether that would be something we can consider. I don't know if we just have to poll the board if people are interested in that, or how we would go about that at this point.
Well, I think that's a policy decision that the board has to make, and I don't think the board has to make it on the fly during public comment.
Okay.
Mr. Langston has made his comments. He's gotten his questions answered, presumably, and the board, I would recommend that perhaps they consult with the executive director and give him some direction at a later time as to whether or not a majority of the board wants to explore this.
And
All right.
if I can just say, yeah, that's all totally fair what you said, and I'm in total agreement. You know, and part of it's my fault. I didn't come back to revisit you guys about this because I think the last time, and I don't know, time is just, you know, who knows time anymore.
True.
But I remember I came back. I think it was, I don't know if it was like not this past December, but maybe like the December before, and you're like, oh, come back in like about like 6 months or so when you're doing your budgeting. So that probably would have been like, you know, August of 2020 at this point that I should have come back to revisit you guys to talk about that, and I didn't do that, and you know, the little thing COVID happened, and I know you guys are dealing with a lot of stuff now too with what the borough wants to do, so I totally get it. So yeah, how you want to revisit, it's fine with me. Just I wanted to bring it back up and just see where things stood because I know I didn't touch base. So thank you.
Well, no, definitely, and thank you, Scott. I appreciate you for coming back and kind of reminding me. I know we did discuss it, and I know, like I said, I know we looked into it, and we will discuss it further. So that I will tell you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh no, thank you. Okay. Anyone else for public comment?
Hi, I have a comment. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
This is Lisa Lillick from 804 Forest Street again. I wanted to say I did see that you put out on the website about the possible sale. And well, there were two things. One is I saw where it said they already got the bids in for that, the bids from people, and that they had told you that they could possibly make a decision as early as May. And I was a little upset to see that because I've been going back and forth with Colleen Leonard, who just kept saying about putting out notices and all. Why would we do that? We don't know the value. We don't have the information and all of that. And quite clearly they do. They do have a lot more information if they already have the bids, and they already have. I had sent her a very specific follow-up that asked if they had gotten the information back from PFM. If they did, was it accessible to the public? Like, could we get a copy? And what did they look at exactly? She wouldn't even answer that. She forwarded it to Stephanie Checo, who never answered. So I wrote her, and now today she says that she'd be more than happy to have a call with me, but it just sounds like they're really pretty far along, and that they weren't being very forthright with me when I asked questions, if they've already told you that it could be as soon as May. So.
Hi, Lisa. This is Jane Flanagan. I'm one of the councilwomen.
Hi, Jane.
And I just wanted to let you know, we only received the bids on Friday.
Okay.
And because they are contracts, they're being studied by the attorneys right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we will be having a meeting just with Borough Council first. And then we will be meeting with the sewer authority. And then I think at that point, we will have everything available. But right now it's still in the discussion. And that's why I'm so happy you came to the meetings and you keep coming. And if you have any other people that are interested, it really is in everyone's best interest if you express your feelings now while I feel like we're in the discovery stage of going through all the possible options, selling the authority, keeping the authority, how we're going to make it look in the future. So it's more of a strategic plan. It's not, we're going to decide overnight. Now that we have the documents, there's a lot to take in. So I hope that helps you understand the process a little bit more. We don't do anything fast because there's so many different options right now. And I think
Jane, I would like to ask something. This is Carol.
Hi, Carol.
It's very hard to find the web link on the borough website, especially to try to attend the meeting. I know the last time, unfortunately, I had a conflict and I couldn't attend, but I would ask that the borough puts it on a more explicit way that people can attend. I know people have called me about it and I've had to like go
Right.
on. So it's not very easy to find, and I think that's a detriment to folks. So I would ask that it would be more explicitly available on the website. And I think
Okay,
what Lisa may be referring to is, I know in one of the borough meetings, Anita did make a mention about liking the numbers that you guys had gotten. So that has brought some, I'm just saying, because this
Right.
is what comes back to me.
Right.
So I'm just stating comments that I have received, just so you are aware of it. So,
Right. Was that
just
since
so-
we got the bids though? We didn't have a meeting.
well, you had
since we got
gotten
the bid.
bids I believe you had gotten bids previously. I think this was probably the January 20th meeting, but
No, we didn't.
there was a comment made. Someone called me about it, and there was a comment made about liking the numbers that you got for the sewer. So I didn't know how to answer that. So what I do is I tell people.
I wouldn't know how to answer. Yeah.
Well, I tell people to call you guys just to let you
Well,
know.
that's fine. And honestly, I'm fine with
So-
talking to anyone about it because we really did not get any firm numbers. I mean, I can't even think of ballpark numbers they gave us. We had no idea. PFM had a general idea, but that was it. And now we have firm numbers, but we have to
Well,
look at every part of their
And that-
contract. They differ.
Well, frankly,
Excuse me,
and I'll shut up. I didn't go back and look at the meetings to confirm what someone had said to me. So I'm just telling you
Right.
what someone had commented to me. So-
Right.
Yeah, that was my question, Jane, when I wrote, was to ask, and I don't know why it wasn't a simple answer back, because what I wrote to Colleen and now Stephanie, who wants a call, I asked, did they get the numbers? Did they get the information from PFM? And if they did, were you able to request to see them, which seemed to me very straightforward answers. Either you got it back or you didn't, and either
Right.
a person can request them or they can't. And generally what was in what they were looking at, were they just looking at the borough's situation as a whole, or did they also look at what happens to the consumer on the other end once it's sold? I didn't think they were very they were either yes or no questions.
Right.
I don't know why. I feel stonewalled. I'm going to be very honest. I feel like I'm getting answers back that are to put me off. They tell me it's months and months away. May is not months and months away. It's a few short months away,
Right.
2.5, I guess. So there's that. And then lastly, my question is this. I understand that it takes council has to look at all of this, right? So they're gonna look at it all and see what they think. Okay, so when you get to the point where you've looked at it all and you've decided that it's a good thing for Conshohocken as a town to do the roads or whatever, will there then be time for residents to speak up, or are then we already too far along? You've already looked at it all yourselves and you've already made the decision. So that's my concern. It's why I feel like to be more open with the public along the way so that they know what they're objecting to. How do you object when you really don't know? I mean, I know from other townships that it's not good for the residents, but how do you know if you don't know along the way? And that's my concern, is that once you get to that bottom thing there, that then it's just going to be a done deal. The way is clear and that's going to be it, and it's going to be too late. That's my concern.
Right. Well, I think what will happen at a public meeting with public comment, the first meeting of each month is our work session. And that's when we have the discussion, we have a question and answer time with the residents and the businesses. And that would be your opportunity to come and ask all the questions. So they'll do a presentation, we'll go through everything. And then there would be an opportunity for you to look at what we have received and ask questions, not just in March, but then in April also. The work sessions are when we have the discussions. And if it's not enough information, then it's tabled to the next month.
Right. I did see that. And I was trying to listen to more of the meetings that I missed, but they're not out there in a very timely fashion to go back and listen to them.
Right.
So
Usually posted like 2 days after the meeting, I think
the
they're,
video, I was looking
No,
for the last one on
No.
there, I think is January
you're
20th.
kidding.
No,
No,
I
they're
actually,
not.
Jane,
There's
I
usually a
was just
lag of a
looking
couple
myself.
weeks.
They
Yeah,
they used to
I
be
was
up
looking
2 days
myself like a
after
day
the
or so
meeting.
ago, and
Right.
Yeah, they're not.
And the
Okay.
same thing even, and Jane, I'll just say this as well, because I
Sure.
was looking for the ordinances that were passed and things like that, and they're also not actually I mean, I don't know if you've passed many ordinances, but they're very far, to what I could see, it seemed that everything was very far behind being posted.
Okay, because the agenda was posted before the meeting, but that's
The
gone now.
agenda, yeah,
The
no,
agenda is.
the agenda
Right, but
is, but
the ordinance.
the ordinances that are passed in the public documents section of the website, where you go for, and again, to Carol's point, I mean, this is not really for our meeting per se, but it is not intuitive how to get to these things. To me,
Right.
it did take a little bit of work. And when I did finally get to the website that had the ordinances, I think the last one was from like 20, I mean, it was like 20, it was far
It was
delayed.
dated.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
King of Prussia, their municipality actually posts their meetings on Facebook with the web link the day of the meeting, so their constituents have easy access. I know some people from there. If you want to contact them, I think that's a good way of doing it. So
Right. That would be more than I could figure out. So we have an IT person that could handle that. I'll have Steph check into that.
I have just one more question, and I don't know if it's for the authority or the council. I plan to ask again. It was another thing that I asked. Is anyone reaching out to townships where the sewers were sold and the period's up for the freeze, how it has affected people? Is that being looked at? What it's going to do with the residents? Does anyone know? Like, to actually get real, I mean, I've tried. I don't know how to go about it, but just to get factual information of what does happen to a resident's bill 2 years down the road after that freeze is up.
Right. I don't know that we've looked at other places. I haven't personally, but I know that that's what the contracts specify. And that's why the details are so important with each of the different bids, because they have different stipulations. So that's what we're looking at right now.
Okay,
well,
well,
I can
thank
tell
you.
you generally that some of the research that we did, I have to dig it up from the Russ's old rate study. We have some of that information. I just have to look for it. I think the most nearby community that has sold their sewer authority recently has been Springfield Township. I know that both Warminster and Norristown Township residents publicly decried the thought of the sale, and that was pushed back in both of those townships. And that's as much as I know. If anybody else knows, I know there are several that have sold and the rates did go up substantially over normal rateages increases, but I don't have that information. And it depends on, again, where you want to go in terms of how far outside of our area.
Well, anyway, thank you for your time. I really appreciate, you know, everything, and that you put that out on the website. I figured maybe you did that because there wouldn't be time to put it in with the bill.
Well,
I didn't know if you were still planning that.
We actually we are planning on getting something else. We were going to plan to get it out with the bill, but now that we think it could be a little bit sooner than we maybe had anticipated initially, we want to get it out sooner. So that is something we're going to actually talk about later, you know, kind of at the end of our meeting. The discussion of the borough acquisition ordinance is going to be, is a topic for us, but honestly, Lisa, I'm kind of saving that to the end because I figure that would be a long one.
All right, thank you
And
so
so
much.
we make it through. But no, I mean, if you want to come back
All
and join
right,
us,
I
you don't want to sit
appreciate
through
you.
everything. But that we
Jane,
are going to be discussing some of those other things.
Since we're
All
on
right,
this
thank you.
topic, Jane, since we're on this topic, I did have a question. You mentioned council is going to meet to review the bids. When does that happen?
What happened with the board?
Well, I was gonna say, Felix, not that, I mean, I want to hash all these out too, but I was hoping that we could get through
Well,
kind
the
of our,
follow-up for that was, you said you're going to meet with us prior to going public with it. So you said council's going to get to look at the bids after the lawyers get to review everything. And then you mentioned that you're going to have a meeting with us, the authority, to discuss what you found in the proposals. I didn't know if those dates have been set yet.
I'm not sure. As I said, we only received the bids Friday. Today's Tuesday. And then with the snow yesterday that came out of nowhere, the office is all shut down early. And we have had some disruption this week. So I'm not sure when.
So I guess going back to the question, there is no itinerary of dates that are like, you don't have like, okay, we're going to take care of this in
There's no time.
March, and then we're going to take care of this in April, and then we want to make a decision.
No.
We're just leaving it open-ended.
We want to do it in a timely manner, but we have to wait until we have all of the information. Now we have the information. That was what we were waiting for. Now we have to digest it. Then we're going to share it with the sewer authority and the public.
And so that, yeah, I was just asking if has any dates been set on those?
No,
announcements?
not as far as I know today. No.
Okay.
Janine, just a quick question for Jane. I'm sorry. Jane, how long are those bids good for?
I didn't read that detail. I'm not sure. Probably, what is the typical, 90 days, 30 days?
It can be
Orange, shaking your
45
head.
days, it can be 90 days.
Right.
So, okay.
That was probably spelled out in the
It is. I'm sure it is in the details.
Okay.
in the request for proposals.
It would be, yes.
Mike, do you have a
I would doubt
copy of
it
that
was as
request for
short as
proposals?
30. I don't think it would only be 30 days. It's typically in the 60 to 90 to 120 day range that they remain good for, but it's exactly what was written in the RFPs. So.
Mike, did you get an opportunity to read the RFP or see it?
I did, Felix, when it was first out, what was it, well over a year ago or whatever, we reviewed it. The request for bids, we reviewed it when it was first, I guess it was more than a year ago, right? That it first went out. But I haven't looked at it recently.
Okay. And Jane, one more question, if I can, is who are the final three bidders that that put proposals in?
It was Aqua, Bucks, Montgomery Consortium, and Pennsylvania American Water.
So it's Aqua, Bucks, and American. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I heard there was a hedge fund that was part of the process too.
They dropped out.
All right. Okay.
okay. Well, if no one minds, I would, like I said, I think we'll have a lot more discussion on this kind of at the end, but if we could, I guess keep moving, we can get through some of the business. And if anybody who wants to get off, wants to get off, and then we can continue on with this. So I guess we don't have any invited guests today, correct? So I really don't have any chairperson minutes. Like I said, there's things we want to discuss, but I think, about this topic that we were all on, but I would, kind of rather save them for the end than get bogged down in them right in this moment. So that being said, let's move on to the approval of the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? And if so, is there a motion to accept?
I make that motion to accept the minutes.
Thank you, Carol.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Jane Flanagan. Felix Raimondo.
Yes.
Carol Smith. Carol, you're muted.
Yes.
Okay. Janine Riley.
Yes. Okay, moving on to our financial report. Did anyone have any questions or on the bills to be paid for this month?
Yes, I actually had two.
All right.
I was curious to see why Patricia Wislow received $710 for a reimbursement on her easement. Can anyone explain?
I can try, unless Lauren, you want to, or Mike, you guys want to run with that. I mean, essentially, when we get an easement on a property, we have to essentially give back to the ratepayer consideration for the ability to go onto their property. So there is a study that's done that allocates how much of an easement, and that then correlates into the dollar amount that is given back to the property owner. Did I kind of nail that? Kind of, sort of.
Right. Is this related to the 9th Avenue project?
Yeah, she actually has two properties. So there was one that had a very small easement and then one that had more of a normal size easement. I think this is the one for the very small easement. So yeah, that's related to that project.
Okay, and that's just to have access to the property?
Yeah, it's an existing sewer main. So we were doing a lining project and we discovered that there were not easements recorded against those properties. We did obtain the easements for properties that we were required to actually go in. There was one property that had a shed over top of our manhole. So we obtained that one quickly. And then we're just kind of cleaning up and getting the rest of them in place.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question was for, it looks like Showalter and Associates. What is that for?
I can jump in. That is for the easements, or I believe it's Freely Square. So Showalter is our surveyor, and rather than have me run it through me and mark it up, I just have them invoice the authority directly.
Okay, thank you. They were my only questions.
Anyone else? Any questions?
I do have a question in regards to the bills. Rudolph Clark, $19,970. That struck me as a little bit higher than typically expected. I see there was a lot of activity. The $7,866 for general representation, a little bit higher than what we were traditionally seeing. I just wanted to know if there's a little bit more content that you could provide for that.
Well, I think Felix, honestly, the discussion that we just had about the potential sale, I think the discussion that we will have regarding the ordinance, all of those matters have required significant guidance and insight by our solicitor. I know Terry's been, and then also, to add to that, Terry getting up to speed and starting in January and things like that. There's been need for more communication. So I would say kind of, our new, executive director getting up to speed and needing some information and getting familiar with our systems. And then honestly, this possible sale. I don't know if
but as always, when if there's any questions about the bill, obviously I don't have the invoices in front of me, but I'll be happy to take a look at our invoices for January, and if anything jumps out of me as out of the ordinary or a little odd, I will we'll certainly discuss it with Terry and then back with the board about whether about what those issues are. So, but I do think we were very busy, and we were very busy for the last couple of months with a whole bunch of different issues. So,
I see. Yeah, you're accurate, Mike. I see Echo Ridge, a lot of, I guess, settlement on bills with the Echo Ridge. But the general representation was a little bit higher than normal.
Yeah, happy to take a look and report back.
Any other questions on the bills to be paid? All right. Hearing none. Can someone make a motion to pay the bills in the amount of $105,718.77? Is that how we do it?
Shannon, is that right? Is that the right amount?
105,718 spot
Oh,
77.
okay,
77, yep.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Jane Flanagan,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Janine Riley.
Yes. Okay, moving on. Any other questions regarding the financial report?
Nope, but I wanted to bring up the liens and the payment plans.
All right.
So I know with COVID, I just want to make sure that we're still not doing them. Like, I mean, obviously the payment plans are what they are right now, but not everybody's paying. So I'm not sure if you want to send letters or if you just want to hold off with everything that's going on with COVID and the sale, but.
I mean, I would think that we would at least want to send letters. I mean, I know we did stop leaning at a point.
The courts mandated stop leaning at the beginning of the pandemic, but that they've since allowed liens to proceed. So it's really a decision for the board.
I thought that we may and correct me, Carol, Felix, Jane, if I'm speaking here. I thought we had considered kind of terminating those policies at the end of 2020 and starting effective 2021, that we were going to kind of go back to kind
That's
of
what I
business
thought.
as usual.
I thought this was suspended as of the end of the year and we were back to normal as of January 1st due to that guidance from the state.
Yes.
I agree. I think we did
Okay.
decide.
So are we going to start with the March bill or the December bill? Because the December bill is not actually due until March or April 15th, I should say. April 15th and April 30th.
Well, it was through for usage through 12/31/2020.
Okay, so then the liens would be later, after the March bill.
I mean, that's the way. I mean, I think if we're saying end of the year, then it's end of the year, right? I don't.
Well,
I mean,
we made an announcement that we're suspending lien policy, and then to reinstate it without announcing it again, I think would be not good communication. So I think that until we pass it to the public through our billing system, I don't think we should start a lien process.
I agree. I think we
would agree with that
wait.
as well.
Yeah, I think the next round of bills is when it starts.
So in this bill payment, we put in there part of our newsletter is that as of moving forward from this date forward, whatever that date is, that we are now going back to our normal policy of collecting outstanding bills.
Yeah.
And also update the website.
And we could,
and I was so Terry, Shannon, if someone could make note of that.
and
please.
we can restate our lien policy going after their highest offenders first, and then that we try to set up a payment plan, and that we use liens as a last resort, and then we eventually will move back to a shutoff if shutoffs are permitted. I don't know if the state allows shutoffs at this.
Well, I think it's still winter, right? So I think we're in the
right.
winter
Yeah,
cold, kind of
April to
regardless
October.
of the pandemic code.
Yeah, Aqua wouldn't do them now till about March anyway. I believe, but I'd have to double check, but I believe that that shutoffs are being allowed, but I'd have to double check that.
But I guess, to the other question, Shannon, I think, I do think people who have not been making their payments on their payment plan, and we've kind of been, allowing that or it's been permissible today. I do think that we should send letters, and I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I think just kind of a gentle, friendly reminder, hey, we're still here. You still have a payment plan.
Yeah, because I send them, go ahead.
I was going to say letters specific to
To
those that are on
the
the payment plan that have not been keeping up with it, and then a general letter to every ratepayer.
There's another approach to it if you'd like to do this as well, members of the board. Instead of waiting until the next cycle, I don't believe the cost is that high to send out a separate letter, separate mailing. So if this is something that you'd want to do, meaning alert people to the fact that at the beginning of the year, due to the state guidance, we no longer have the policy that we had, and then also to let people know that starting on this date, just a suggestion, you could also.
No, I'm
just,
pondering
just
it,
an
and
idea.
I think it'll kind of play into our discussion later, which is if we're going to send a letter regarding information on the sale, how much do we want to inundate people with extra mailings prior to our?
And I agree
Or
with
they
that.
not, I think we would have to just make sure we're focused on timing and what we want people to pay attention to.
That is also a good point. Agreed.
So I mean, we can,
And I
think we can definitely talk about a letter, but it's just kind of when we get it done. But I think letters specific to the people who are in arrears or with payment plans, I think that we can definitely go ahead with now, right? Would you all agree?
I agree as well. Yes.
Okay,
And then
yeah,
kind of
because I
mass
do,
mailing we can talk about.
because I do send one monthly to all of them, whether they're paying or not. I still send the reminder to them. But I think another letter, I don't know if coming from me or coming from Rudolph Clark would be a better.
So
Shannon would
if
be
I could
fine.
just jump in here for a second, just as a reminder about liens. Liens are more about protecting the authority than punishing a delinquent ratepayer. Now there is a cost to the ratepayer because there's a lien fee that's put on it, and there are legal fees that are put on it. But I just want you to bear in mind that when you're not liening these properties, it doesn't mean that it could mean that you're losing out on getting some of this money. Because if someone's delinquent and you're not liening this property and then the property is sold or something along those lines and there's no lien, you may end up not getting that money, or you may have a brand new property owner who suddenly we say your account is $200 delinquent and they had no way of knowing. So I know that you're talking about reinstituting your lien policy, in March, but I'd just caution about delaying it too long because you may be exposing yourself to some risk.
Right, and we don't always, we usually get a sewer cert when a property sells, but that doesn't always happen.
Is the goal to have Shannon file the liens
We're working toward
moving
that.
forward?
Yes, I think Shannon does the vast majority of it, and then there's just a little bit of time related to Rudolph Clark's assistant. But yes, Felix, I think we're working.
I think
part of the plan. I think part of our discussion was to have Shannon try to take that over 100%.
it's a good opportunity as any, right? So
Yep, sir.
why don't we make that part of this discussion too? That Shannon files all liens moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, she may need some assistance, I would say, particularly with this first billing cycle. I don't know how the rest of the board, I mean, but I mean,
Well, if there's
Shannon,
something
or even
specific.
how you feel about it.
I would definitely need some direction on what it is exactly that I have to do.
Mhm.
And maybe talk to Eileen and see how long it actually takes to do, depending on how many liens I have each quarter.
But yeah, I think kind of when we start up this process again, I don't see why that would be something that we wouldn't, move forward with, kind of as was, we were talking about. Okay. Shannon, did you have anything else on the financial report, or was that?
No, I think that's it, because I think Terry's going to talk about the other stuff.
Okay. Terry, did you have some thoughts on the financial report?
Nothing specific, no.
Okay.
Well,
Looks good.
So I was talking about the dental renewal, and
That's on my report, Shannon.
that is, yeah, and 301 and 309, right?
Just for now, we're just going to handle the dental report. We'll take care of 301, 309 next time around. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. So any other questions on the financial report? Okay. Hearing none, do I have a motion to accept the financial report?
I make a motion to accept the financial report.
Second.
Flanagan,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Janine Riley.
Yes. All right. Moving on to the solicitor's report.
Thank you. You have our report in the board packet detailing some of the issues that we have been working on over the last month. And obviously, as was discussed a few minutes ago, we've been working with Terry on updating some of the COVID policies and also dealing with issues regarding the potential sale. I know that we have a couple of things to discuss this night that may take a little bit of time, so I'll get right into the 4 action items that we have for you this evening. And if I can just find my note on the one. The first is an approval of an agreement for an abandonment of an EDU for 126 West 8th Avenue, Unit B, with the property owner is Ann Kelly, and I believe this has been discussed at the last couple of meetings.
I'll make that motion.
Can I second? If I can second, I'll second.
Well, just one point of clarification for the board. We had discussed this dating back to the date of her request, which would entitle her to, I believe, Shannon, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's a $41 credit to her account. But because there's no consumption, but just the date of her request, that would be the amount refunded to her because she's not seeking any reimbursement prior to the date of her request.
And what do you know what the date of her request was?
I believe it was September 30th. Nicole put that in the agreement.
So there actually probably would have been 2 $41 charges and then a $4.50 penalty and a $4 loss discount, I believe.
Okay, let me see. It's 40. Yeah, so it was September 30th, which is it's a $41 bill. But you're saying there's another charge as well?
Well, so yeah, so then the December bill would have been $41. And then there would have been $4.50 in penalties for the September bill and $4 loss discount on the September bill.
Did she pay those things?
I don't believe she's paid them, but I'm not positive.
Okay, so then it wouldn't be a reimbursement. It would essentially just be waiving those fees.
Right. So I'll check
I
and see how much she actually paid, but
yeah, I mean, regardless, I think we're looking at a delta of under $100, $86, $87 kind of being the total. I don't have an issue if she does in fact have to be reimbursed that amount. But I think, again, if she hasn't paid it, then it may just simply be waiving it, which I mean, obviously for board consideration, but I'm fine with that.
Yep.
I don't think the amounts seem significant, but we should have them accurate.
Absolutely.
So, when we go to pass the motions, we should have it all calculated out, not to be determined. But I'm willing to go ahead and pass this agreement pending Shannon's final calculation, and then circulate it among the board if it's under $100. If it goes over that, then we should probably take it up for reconsideration.
I agree.
It's my thought.
Yep. No, I think that's fine. I think if it's, again, under $100, it's insignificant, and I would be fine with that.
And 2.
Carol's shaking her head. Yes.
Well, we have a
okay.
motion in a second.
so Jane Flanagan,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Janine Riley.
Motion passes, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. I heard everyone say yes, but normally we say the motion passes. So,
Oh, sorry, the motion passes. I'm still learning.
okay. The next item we have, or the next three items, are employment agreements for Linda, and I'm going to butcher her last name. So someone else can jump in there. Is it Uccialetti or
You
Uccialetti?
Saletti.
Uccialetti.
Yes.
I wasn't even close. Approval of the 2021 employment agreement for the office manager, Linda. Approval of the 2021 employment agreement for finance director, Shannon Stewart. And approval of the 2021 employment agreement for operations manager, Edward F. Mungan III. These are all retroactive to January 1st of this year. I'd recommend that you take these all individually. You could take them all together, but I think for the purposes of the minutes, it's probably best if it's reflected that these were all voted on one at a time.
Okay.
Make
Does
a
anyone want to
motion
make those
for,
motions?
I'll make a motion for office manager Linda Uccialetti.
Yes.
I'll
I will
second.
second. Oh,
Showing
okay,
me
go
up.
Okay. Jane Flanagan,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Janine Riley.
Yes.
Motion
And
passes.
that motion passes. And I will make the motion for finance director to approve the employment agreement for finance director Shannon Stewart, whose name I
I
can
second.
say.
I will second that.
Okay. Jane Flanagan,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Janine Riley.
Yes. And that motion passes as well.
Make a motion for operations manager Edward F. Mongan III.
I will second that.
Jane Flanagan. Jane.
You're muted.
I did it backwards. Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Janine Riley.
Oh, yes. That motion passes.
And that will conclude our report.
All right. Do I hear a motion to accept the solicitor's report?
I make a motion to accept the solicitor's report.
I'll second.
Jane Flanagan,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Janine Riley.
Yes. All right. Motion is passed. Moving on to our engineering report. Fred, you are up.
Okay, and I will try to keep it relatively short because of the other significant discussions, but I do gotta definitely highlight our 2020 Chapter 94 report to really give props to the authority for proactively addressing I&I. Our annual average flow is the low it's been in the last 5 years, even though we've made a significant number of connections. Our flows are lower than they were during the drought of 2016, which this is the only authority out of the 23 that I represent. This is the case. The other thing is that our annual average flow is 1,021,000 gallons. Our max 3 consecutive monthly flow is 1,064,000. That's only a difference of 43,000. In most places, it's a difference of 300 to 400,000 gallons for an authority of this size. We are, our annual average flow, as I said, is approximately 1 million gallons. Our permit is 2.3 million. So there's plenty of capacity there. as a result of all the I&I work, getting grants, installing liners. And our max 3 consecutive monthly flow would be 3 million gallons, and ours was approximately 1,064,000. I did want to just point that out. It's just honestly remarkable how well and the diligent work of the operations staff, and then getting grants for the lining. Our ratio max 3-month to annual average is 1.04. A really good system that I would brag about is 1.2 to 1.3. I have systems where I'm literally at a 2 this year, unfortunately. So that's the main thing. I will review this in a little bit more detail at the March meeting, because I do believe that it's important for the board. But I said tonight we may be trumped by other matters. It is due on March 31st, so I will be reviewing it with staff and Terry prior to the next authority meeting, going a little bit more detailed if time allows. But I just wanted to really let the board know that the money that they spent and the grants they've received and the work of their, it shows, the numbers show. It's a showcase. It clearly is.
Fred, I have a question. I'm
Yes.
sorry to interrupt. I know we're watching the time, but that ratio number, that 1.04, what unit is that? A unitless number?
Yes, it's a ratio of the max 3 consecutive monthly flow divided by the annual average flow. So that really tells you. Yep.
So that's like an industry. It's I'm sorry. It's a unitless system that's used by the industry.
Yes, and we use that to project future peak flows. So in the Chapter 94 report, we estimate based on flow per EDU, and then we project peak flows using that ratio. Next item is the. Somebody say something. I'm getting feedback all of a sudden. Okay. Next item is the 2021 capital budget. I reviewed this with Terry, answered some questions. We setting up a meeting with Plymouth in the future, but really one of the major items there is the opportunity to do another pilot sludge test, where we have a manufacturer that's willing to bring in their pilot test for almost no cost to the authority. There'll be some labor and coordination, but no out-of-pocket costs. The advantage of this is that we get a chance to really, and the goal of this is to replace our belt filter press with the best available technology that'll have the highest solids concentration. Well, you can only do so much based on calculations. You really got to bring a real unit out there. So this would be done in April or May. They would actually bring it out there. But with the authorities' concurrence, we'd like to continue to pursue having this pilot test done. They've actually already come to the site, taken some samples so they're all ready when they show up. We previously did this with another unit, and I've been representing that we would bring a second pilot unit in. Unfortunately, we couldn't do that with COVID until now. I also have only a limited opportunity. They bring this trailer mounted unit. It goes throughout the United States. So April or May is when they're in our area. So if the board doesn't have any issues, I'll work with Terry and Ed to kind of coordinate this. We'll leave any agreements or anything like that to Mike and Lauren to review, and follow the same procedures we did in the first pilot test. Unless the board has any other questions, I'd just like to proceed that way with your direction, because I know the board has more important things to consider right now, but yet we still need to do our day-to-day operations.
Fred, thank you. I mean, I have no problem. I don't know if the board has an issue moving with this pilot program. This is something the screw press that we've talked about before.
Yeah, there's a definite need to move forward with this, and despite all the other discussions going on, this should be pursued. And I think the original timeline that we set out was to have something done in 2021. Is that correct, Fred, in terms of the belt filter press?
Yes, and that's why having these pilot tests is so important to keep on that timeline.
So doing this due diligence now will put us on schedule to still move forward. So
absolutely. So again, that can just be direction, correct? That doesn't have to be a motion.
Right.
That's
Nobody's-
correct.
Yes, so Fred, yes, you have our direction. Please
Good.
proceed.
Okay. The phase 2 liner project, which we received the grant, I am going to request an extension for the grant. We're still working with SEPTA, the solicitor's office, and getting the license agreement so we can access it. We probably will get this done and awarded without the need for the extension, but it costs us nothing to do the extension besides a half an hour of my time. So I would ask just that the board authorize Terry to sign the extension, and I'll complete all the paperwork.
Is that just direction?
Direction,
No
just direction.
Again, I unless anyone has an issue with that, I see no issue with that.
How long of an extension do you need, Fred?
I'm going to ask for a year. The grant expires on June 31st. Just so I get time to get the paperwork done. So hopefully we get all the agreements with SEPTA worked out, and then I can bid the contract. The contracts are ready to bid as soon as we get the SEPTA easement agreement. Next item is just a quick update on Freely Square. The authorities now has accepted dedication last month. Jonathan Vito in my office is working on getting 3 or more written proposals to perform this work, and hopefully he will get them back next month. Contractors that have gone out, they said they're pretty busy, but that they definitely wanted to do work for the authority. Last item on my engineer's report is the odor control media replacement. We're just getting the final approval of the executed contract documents. Once this is completed, we will issue the notice to proceed and continue to move ahead. That completes my report, unless the board has any questions for me.
I didn't have any questions. Did anyone else have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I'm just happy to go forward with the having that second vendor come in. And again, I hope that we're keeping data in case you want to present anything to the PMAA, Fred, that might be of interest to them. Because Jane, I don't know if you know this. I mean, what we're doing is actually kind of cutting edge in the industry. So I've asked Fred if he could keep in touch with PMAA, and it's good for representation of our borough and good for the industry. If they come up with some data that's good to share at a meeting, it's also good for exposure to our employees as well, as if they're at something like that.
Right. No,
I will
great.
tell you that you guys have become my poster child for properly maintaining your system. So all of my other authorities are seeing, if you spend money and you do a good program, this is the results. And by continuously doing it, this is how little I actually spend compared to, I have other authorities. Terry's familiar with one. I'm spending $1.5 million a year on I&I, and I'm not even touching it.
All right.
That's all for me.
All right, wonderful. So do I hear a motion to accept our engineering report?
I make a motion to accept the engineering report.
I'll second it.
Jane Flanagan,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Janine Riley.
Yes. All right. That motion passes. See, I'm getting better at this. Okay, going to our operation manager's report. Ed, you're up.
Okay. All right, I submitted the Tier 2 and the stormwater reports for the year 2020. That was the first time doing that, so got through it pretty painlessly. Implemented a new fogging procedure for the fogging system that we purchased to disinfect the plant and the vehicles. So that seems to be going really well. We have the weekend coverage doing that on Saturday or Sunday when nobody's around. So that's going really well. Also had a company come in and inventory our lab chemicals. Was Elk Environmental to give us a price on disposal of those old chemicals that we're not using. And that quote came in at $6,439. That was the only
It's
quote I
going to be
received.
expensive, Ed, but I didn't expect quite that much.
Either
Just
did
to
I,
let-
to be honest.
To let folks know, last year when I took over, or a little over a year ago when I took over the chair, I took a walk through with Stephen. I think this was before you, Ed. I took a walk through with you too when you came through. And we had 2 safety hoods that have a storage area underneath they're appropriately separated based on grade, but some of those chemicals, and there are considerable volumes of them, probably close to a decade old in there, and it is a major safety issue. So I just wanted to give you all the background on that, and it is not cheap to dispose of hazardous chemicals, and these are hazardous chemicals that are stored down there. And I just wanted, I'm muting myself now.
Yeah, thank you.
So
So are you looking for direction from us to move ahead, or
yes, please.
with approving that? Is that a motion or is that direction?
You're getting ready to
Spend money.
Spend money to
Yeah,
dispose
but you're
of.
not.
We didn't
But are
spend
you?
the money yet.
Are you telling? I apologize. Are you telling Ed to move forward with doing this?
Yes,
That's what I
that's
think
the
we're
idea.
telling him to do. So I think it would be a motion then, right? Because we're
Well,
instructing him to
yeah.
accept the proposal of that 6,000 and change, to do that. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Which
it's actually you're accepting the proposal.
We're accepting the proposal to pay
Right.
someone
Right.
$6,400 and some dollars.
$39.
Well, you're not, but you're not paying them now. I'm assuming that'll show up at a future bill list. You're accepting this proposal for them to go forward and do the work, and then it'll show up on a future bill list.
Okay. All right. As Mike said, would anyone like to make that motion?
I will
I'll make
make that motion. Oh, sorry, Jane.
Well, I think between Carol and Jane, we got a motion and a second.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll second it. Did we get
Whoever. Yeah, she had it.
Okay.
Yep.
And just again, I am quite happy to see those chemicals being disposed of. And again, just so in case those folks who don't work in the industry, it's not just removal of the chemicals. They have to take on the onus of actually properly sequestering, separating, and disposing of them. And that's not an easy task. So just so you fully know what is involved.
I think it's an important item. It's a good safety cleanup item.
Flanagan.
Yes.
Felix Raimondo.
Yes.
Carol Smith. Janine
Carol,
Wright.
you were, yes.
I saw her lips move.
I'm sorry, there is a delay and I don't always wait appropriately.
All right, that motion passes.
Thank you. And the last thing I have is just, I have a company that offered to come out and test our polymer and take samples of our sludge before and after going through the filter press, just to test for efficiency and see if they can offer us a better product. So it's no cost to us. So I said, have at it. So he'll be out here Thursday.
Wonderful.
That concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Ed. Anyone have any questions on Ed's report? Hearing none, would anyone like to make a motion to accept the operation manager's report?
I make a motion to accept the operation manager's report.
I'll second it.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
Felix Raimondo.
Yes.
Carol Smith.
Yes.
Janine Riley.
Yes. That motion passes. All right, moving on to collections and maintenance report. Always one of the heavy hitters.
I'll make a motion to accept the
I'll
maintenance
second.
and collections report.
I will second that one.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
Felix Raimondo.
Yes.
Carol Smith.
Yes.
Janine Riley.
Also yes. That motion passes. Moving on to interim executive director's report. Terry, your turn.
Okie dokie. First, the Delta dental contract. I provided a copy of the doc in your packet. Good news. Delta's proposing a new 2-year contract. However, they will freeze rates for that period of time. Given the COVID circumstances, frankly, I would expect that they would be able to do that. We spend somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 11,000 a year on that particular benefit. If you don't have any questions or do either way, at some point, if it's the pleasure of the board, I recommend that you approve the new 2-year contract and authorize your interim director to execute.
Make that motion.
I'll second that.
Jane Flanagan.
Yes.
Felix Raimondo.
Yes.
Carol Smith.
Yes.
Janine Riley.
Also yes. All right, that motion passes.
Next item, the COVID leave policy for the authority. You recall we discussed this at our January meeting. We pointed out that the Family First COVID Leave Act, which was federal legislation, expired at the end of last year. And the cornerstone of that legislation was the requirement that employers provide special paid sick leave for employees who have come down with COVID or COVID-related matters. In your packet, you have the two things, a enabling resolution, and you have the policy that was prepared by our solicitors. Simply, what we would be providing is special paid leave, a special paid leave program for our people, a maximum of 10 working days if the employee tests positive or if the employee is required to quarantine based on CDC guidelines. So again, the resolution is in your packet. The policy is included. They go together. First, do you have any questions about the policy?
I didn't have any questions.
I don't have any questions.
I don't have any questions either, Terry.
Okay, so it's up to the board if you want to make a motion approving the resolution and the policy. I offer that to you.
I think it's fine. Do I hear anyone would like to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to approve these COVID policy.
I'll second it.
Jane Flanagan,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Janine Riley.
Yes. That motion passes.
Next item, continuing on the COVID theme. As we, I believe as Ed's pointed out, we did purchase the fogging machine. We want to thank the board for the authorization to do that. And it is being used. It's operational every weekend. So thank you for that. And just another minor matter, to try to maintain as much social distancing as we practically can in the workplace. We started a few weeks ago to stagger lunch breaks. The idea, the goal is not to have more than 2 employees in our lunchroom at any given time, maximum 2. And so far, so good. That seems to be working out well.
Just like to applaud Terry for coming up with that and doing that. Thank you.
I agree. I think it was a great move. And I know, Ed, you also, assisted in putting together this. And so thank you both for your efforts on that. So do we have to approve that?
No, that's just that's just in
FYI.
Yeah, just precisely. And FYI, I do want to go back a minute to the COVID policy and just remind the board that the policy you've just approved is in effect from technically from January 1st to June 30th. The idea behind that is to hear what's going on in the world with the availability of our vaccines. So I think this policy is very, very necessary until we can get to the point where the vaccine is readily available. And then at that point in time, we can reconsider the policy, whether we think it's truly necessary or not. So I just wanted to throw that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, I sent you before, and I just remind you, you had told me to secure the engagement letters for both the engineer and an auditor. I did. It's in your packet, and you have that information, and we'll of course follow the way. And the audit Kathy's already started the audit.
Okay.
And just to let you know, those are also in Dropbox, correct, Terry?
Yes.
I just asked Terry to put that stuff for the board in Dropbox when we get those type of documents, so you have it for your reference as needed.
No, thank you, Carol. That's excellent. Okay. Anything else, Terry? Are we ready to make a motion to accept your report?
Yes.
All right. Anyone have any additional questions? And if not, would anyone like to make the motion to accept Terry's report, the interim executive director?
I make the motion to accept the executive director's report.
I'll second that.
Jane Flanagan,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Janine Riley.
Also, yes. That motion passes. So now, I guess, on to the part that we've all been waiting for. The discussion of the borough acquisition ordinance, and I guess possibly in collaboration or coordination with that is the resolution regarding the equalization of rates for for all ratepayers, which we didn't really include, but they are kind of all together. I don't know, Terry, if you would like to really explain this to us, or if you want me to do it, or if we want Mike and Lauren to do it, how we feel that this is best presented, what
If I can recommend, Perhaps we can start with maybe Mike and Lauren talking about that ordinance and what that means. And then we can just work our way into all those other issues.
Yep. All right.
Maybe I can unmute myself. So the ordinance essentially allows the borough to take over the operation of the authority and take the assets of the authority and effectively turn the authority into a department of the borough on a determined conveyance date. Now, one of the things we dealt with last week was the idea that there was a concern that once this ordinance, or if this ordinance was adopted, that the authority 5 days afterwards would in essence cease to exist. And we reached out to the attorneys for the borough, and we got a little clarification on the issue regarding the conveyance date. And although it originally looked at, when you read the ordinance, that it was 5 days after enactment, the borough considered that just the effective date, but not the conveyance date. So in essence, the only thing that has changed about our operation or our running of the authority is that the borough has placed certain limitations on what the borough or what the authority can do with respect to the potential sale. And in essence, what I think they have done is they have tried to avoid a situation like occurred in Norristown, where the Norristown Council voted to sell the assets to Aqua, then attempted to dissolve the authority, and the authority did not cooperate. The authority used authority funds to fight the sale to Aqua. In essence, what the borough has done with this ordinance is we can't expend authority funds to try to derail the sale. We can't do anything to potentially try to quote unquote screw up the sale. For instance, if you wanted to tonight, if you wanted to sell the West Conshohocken system to Plymouth for $1, you can't. If you wanted to enter into an agreement with Plymouth that they their rates will be, they'll owe us $1 a year for the next 50 years for sewage treatment, you can't do something like that. I joked with Terry the other day, he can fill a vacancy, he can't go out and hire 100 new operators tomorrow and have them all hanging around. But in essence, since there has been no defined conveyance date yet, we still continue to operate the way we have with respect to the way we've always operated. The resolution about the
capital money, right, Mike?
What was that, Felix?
All but moving forward on capital projects, normal operations.
Only capital projects that are considered. You're right. Only capital projects that are considered. We have a pump blowout tomorrow. We can replace that. But if you told Fred today we want to expand the plant, we want a re-rate of the plant, we want to do something along those lines.
What about something more like what we were scheduled to do in terms of replace the belt filter press? Can we move forward?
I think those are things we're going to have to look at, and I think those are things that we're going to have to get some clarification.
Do we have to review with Stephanie on those type of operational decisions?
I think if we are making certain capital expenditures that do not appear either routine or emergency in nature. I do believe the way I read that ordinance is we're going to need to consult with the borough on that.
Jane, does Mike's interpretation match up with what the intent of the ordinance was that you guys
Yeah.
passed?
So it was, operations are to continue without any delay. And I think any large capital expenditures should be brought to Stephanie and then she'll bring them to council. I think the intent is, as Mike said, not to do anything drastic, not to sell off a major asset or purchase a major asset while we're in this stage.
And the other issue is, as you know, as an authority, we are permitted to set our own rates for those customers of the authority, whether they are within our geographic boundaries or they are outside of our geographic boundaries. A sewer department or a borough or a township that it is not an authority cannot do that. They can only set rates for those municipalities within their geographic boundaries. So rates for anyone outside of their geographic boundaries need to be set by the Public Utility Commission. So any issue with rates, they're going to have to deal with that issue, and uniformity of rates, if it's post conveyance date, will be something that the borough will have to deal with the PUC on.
And why was that resolution proposed? Because I don't remember that being discussed with us.
Carol, if that question is for me, my answer is I have no idea.
Carol, we're asking me, it was just to include Plymouth in whatever agreement is made. Like right now, we're not going to do anything different than what's been done. And because they're not residents of Conshohocken, I think, as Mike said, it's a customer versus a resident.
Jane, can I jump in for a second?
Sure.
Plymouth actually has the same rate structure as Conshohocken. The issue is with West Conshohocken. They do not.
That's not
Right. There's
our.
we
don't have a
yeah,
rate
but
structure
there's
with West
a
Conshohocken,
distinction
with
also
right
because Plymouth is a bulk customer.
Right, we have a percentage agreement on
retail.
Operational expenses. Is that correct, Mike? We have a
That's
percent.
correct.
That's it.
Yep.
So we don't have a ratepayer in Plymouth.
We have one ratepayer, Plymouth.
Right, but
we're wholesale. We're wholesale in Plymouth. We're bulk. We're wholesale in Plymouth. We're retail in West Conchie. We set a rate. We set our rate, right. They pay a rate based on their 26.44% of treatment, and then they pass that along to their customers.
Is that a rate set, or is that a percentage of operational expenses? And I don't, not to split the hairs, but that is a significant difference in what the ordinance says to what the actual our actual practices are. I think it's substantially different.
As you know, Plymouth is responsible for a certain percentage of capital costs, and I think it's 26 point whatever percent.
Correct.
And then the treatment cost is based on that amount of that operational expenses, right? Based on that same percentage. And then what Plymouth does is they then set a rate for their local residents, and they bill them individually. We don't bill anyone living in Plymouth.
But
what
did the ordinance say? What was the resolution that was passed by Borough Council?
Well, this was the resolution, and again, I guess I was surprised because I don't remember that being brought up at the meeting that we had with you all. And I just wondered where it came from. And I thought it addressed West Conchie trying to standardize the rates, which is, you know, something that we've already done on the board in terms of our planning. So I was just surprised, and I didn't know where that came from, because our rate structures have been based on trying to maintain our services. And again, I didn't think we had discussed that at the meeting that we had. So it kind of came out of nowhere for me. And I was curious where it came from and why.
Is that a question for Jane?
I think the
Question for Jane, because again, I just was curious where it came from, because I don't remember us discussing it before. And
Okay.
I was kind of trying to understand the whole point of that resolution.
Well, and I guess, and I'll add, this is not, Jane, a question so much for you, but I'll add to that. I want to understand how it affects West Conshohocken and kind of our promise there that the ratepayers of essentially Plymouth and Conshohocken Borough would not in any way subsidize our purchase of the West Conshohocken pumping station. And that was why we had established those different ratepayer systems. And I you know, I
Exactly.
you know, I feel bad, Jane. I think unfortunately I'm going to apologize to you in advance going into a lot of these conversations.
Right.
You're kind of low hanging fruit right now.
Right.
But and obviously you don't have all these answers. So I think again to just kind of going into this, these are going to be difficult discussions. I think we all, our board members, have to be kind to Jane, myself included, and recognize that she is not a autonomous, you know, she's, you know, kind of in a difficult position. But I do wish that there would have been some communication with us or some conversation, because those things were in place for a specific reason. And
yeah, to
now
me, that resolution came out of the blue. Janine, did we hear about it at all before?
If I could just interrupt for a second.
Sure.
The resolution really doesn't impact us.
Okay.
The resolution is more going to be post if and when the borough takes us over, or if and when the borough sells us.
Okay.
And
So,
I will say
to
this.
to be
And
clear,
if I could just say this.
Yeah.
We never made any promises to West Conshohocken about rate stabilization other than what we put in the agreement. If you'll recall, we originally offered West Conshohocken that we would keep their rates the exact same as ours forever and ever, but they rejected that deal. Yeah, they rejected that deal. So then we only gave them whatever it was, a 2 year or a 3 year rate freeze. 2 year
rate freeze.
Right.
But
and
Mike, go ahead.
And I you know, I do think there are some problems with this resolution. I think there are some things that are not accurate in this resolution. I think there's some problems with it.
So, Mike, that's my question on the accuracy of the resolution and the impact on the residents of Conshohocken. If we set all the rates the same as our rate structure and rates, because if you read the resolution, it's not just structure, but it's the financial amount. We are now subsidizing, the residents of Conshohocken are now subsidizing West Conshohocken residents on their system, and that is, you know, that has
counterintuitive to what we wanted to do.
Ours. Right.
Yeah, that was Felix. That's exactly what my concern is. Thank you.
And mine as well.
Okay, so what I would suggest, if you would submit those questions to me, and I can advance them to Mike Peters, or Mike Clark could take care of them and address them with Mike Peters. Because if it's in inference people are making or an assumption, I'm not an attorney. So quite obviously we should get someone who wrote the ordinance to look at it and address those issues.
So to Jane, during the conversation of passing this resolution, was it ever discussed the financial impact on our residents if we set the rates all the same?
rates for our residents have been our primary concern. Total.
Well, right, but is there an understanding now that the residents of Conshohocken are now subsidizing West Conshohocken residents? That's
Through this
that's
resolution.
the practical implication
All right,
of
so
that resolution.
that again is something I think we would have to have the attorney address.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jane.
No, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I don't think we're not changing any of our rates based on this.
That's what I was going to ask, Mike. That
This
seems to be what you were saying.
resolution only comes into effect after the conveyance date. And
But
that conveyance date hasn't been
doesn't
set.
say that in the resolution, Mike.
Yeah, but with all due, and again, with all due respect to the borough's lawyers, they can't set our rates as long as the 5 of you are still duly empowered, and the 5 of you are still duly empowered until the conveyance date. So this resolution will only come into play when we are dissolved, and if we're sold, then the rates will be structured based on the asset purchase agreement.
Mike, but it doesn't
then
say that. That's the problem. It doesn't say based on
I know
conveyance.
what it says.
Right.
I know what it says, and I know I have a sense of what the borough's lawyers think they can do, and I don't agree with them.
But to be a stickler on this, Mike, you have a sense what they meant. You have a feeling what they can do, but what they acted on was.
No, I know what they can do, and they cannot set our rates.
But they just did in a resolution.
Nah,
I know.
They think they did.
So are we going to notify them that the resolution that they passed isn't what they passed, or that it should be amended to be?
I think.
Are we just going to let it stay as is? There's a lot of confusion. Now here's the problem. Had we had a conversation with the borough that this was one of the items that they intended to implement, I think the conversation may have been a little bit differently, or might have been a little bit foresight put into this on the financial impact of the residents.
I agree with you, Felix. I was just hoping that we would have been alerted to it. So it was a surprise for me when it came up at the meeting. And again, our rates are set based on, I'm not going to go into it, but the reasons that we put in there for appropriate finances for each borough.
Absolutely.
And, so anyway, that's
absolutely.
I just wanted to bring it up because I was surprised by it, quite frankly.
No,
so,
I think we all were. I think we all were.
So being surprised is one thing, but I mean, how do you respond to it is what we can control. So
and Felix, that's where I was going to, that's kind of, I think that's the next logical thing that I was going to say as well. I think, so I guess now may be an opportune time to state that the borough has reached out to us, and Terry, I don't know if you want to jump in here as well, but they've reached out to us, and they and Mike, or if I'm misspeaking, just like jump in and stop me. They've reached out to us and they want to talk to us at this point about some the sale considerations, possibly even some alternatives to a sale, and that there was an initial conversation just to for them really to present to us, and it was really, I want to say, more one-sided at that point in time, where they presented to us why they're going through this exercise and the reasons behind it, and how they've done it with other assets within the borough, so on and so forth. And at that point in time, we responded and said, hey, these are some things we would like you to consider, and these are some ways we might potentially be able to work with you. And that piqued the interest enough that they reached out and want to continue that discussion. And Terry, Ed, and I are going to be part of that discussion tomorrow. And so to that end, I would like to bring up tomorrow, in addition, is just kind of a notification of the fact this resolution may not be exactly what it was thought to be. But I don't know, Mike, again, this would be, for you, or for Lauren, our solicitors, what the appropriate way or is that something that you guys will bring up and we really don't have to at this point in the and we'll go back to the conversation we're going to have, but let's just deal with the resolution. Let's step it out.
I guess, first of all, the resolution contains language about the conveyance in accordance with the act, and we've already gotten confirmation from the borough that there is no set conveyance date yet. The effective date of the ordinance is 5 days after it's passed, but they have not set a conveyance date yet. So, as we mentioned before, really what the ordinance intended to do was for us not to be able to create any sort of poison pills to any potential sale. I don't believe that. I think what this resolution does is upon conveyance, it allows the borough, let's say the borough doesn't sell us, but they decide to dissolve us and turn us into a department. It allows them to go and set rates consistent with this resolution. I think when you read the language in the resolution that talks about that in accordance with the act, we will convey the system to the borough and the borough will accept the conveyance. It has to be set on this conveyance date. So there hasn't been a conveyance date set. So I don't think this impacts us at all with regards to the setting of our rates. And I wouldn't go as so far as to say discussing this resolution might be it might be, I don't want to be such a smart aleck to say it's rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic if we are going to spend a lot of time talking about this resolution, because at the end of the day, this resolution really only comes into play when we no longer exist. So I would say that what Terry has put together with respect to a proposal to present to the borough about other options is of greater import right now than this resolution.
Strike up the band.
All right. So, okay, so are we all okay right now with the ordinance and resolution piece and kind of ready to move on to our further discussions with the borough? And by I say the borough, but borough council, borough management, staff, etc.
On that final note, let's move forward. But I think that we've done nothing but shown good faith in this whole process of discussion, and I think that the move that the borough council did on voting on this without discussing their intent, I just think it sets it doesn't set a good precedent for communication. That's all of us are sitting there going, why? And we just don't have good answers. It just doesn't seem to be a good conversation. It seems to be a one-sided conversation at this point. And I guess that's a lot of frustration.
It was advertised properly and it was announced. So I think that might have been the time more for questions than after the vote. It was advertised.
You're technically, Jane, you're completely correct. I mean, I've been on your side too. And we all know that I consider myself a relatively informed person within the borough, as I'm sure everybody else sitting on this Zoom call. And you're correct, but I think optically, I think it was I think it's under not being fully informed to us at least, let alone the residents of Conshohocken. But that
I was
being said,
surprised to
I
hear
think
about
we have
that.
to.
I didn't know about that resolution, Jane. We had that meeting and it wasn't even mentioned. So when
It
it came up
showed
at the
up in
borough,
one of the
But
work sessions.
listen, my job here
Yeah,
is not to defend the borough, but this resolution means nothing. It really does.
Optically,
It means nothing.
you're absolutely correct.
Again,
I guess what I'm saying is optically, it doesn't present well.
right.
So, I mean, technically you may be correct, and Jane's technically correct. Optically, this looks like it was done last minute deal without full disclosure. That's how it presents.
Felix, I would agree to a certain extent, because I think to the extent that we are asked to go to Stephanie, now at this point, if we have certain things we need to do, and there are certain, so and I really want to move off this topic, but I think to the extent that we're asked to kind of go and ask permission, essentially, which is the way it's set up. But I do think that just when you see restructuring of the rate system, it kind of, even though to Mike's point, it doesn't really do anything, it does set off those alarm bells and send up the red flags, like, hey, you're doing something without consulting us, and kind of coming and saying, hey guys, be aware that this is kind of meaningless, but this is why we have to do it. So I do think that reciprocity in the sharing of things that someone sees change to the rate structure, and they're going to call us because they're going to want to know, and we really don't have any knowledge of that. So I think that
Jane, you're exactly right. What I'm saying is that we're trying to interpret the intent of something which Mike thinks is what is meant, instead of, hey, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it. None of that happened.
I think that's,
and so I got our solicitor saying one thing, and he may be correct, but we're trying to slice out something that we have no information on.
And I think that would be something that tomorrow I would just kind of
Exactly. That's what I was going to say, Janine. This is the perfect opportunity tomorrow to get clarification, and possibly if it needs to be reworded after the attorneys talk, then we'll address it.
Yep. Okay.
Well, again, Mike, you're right. This resolution, in terms of what we need to spend time on in this meeting tonight, is not important. To speak to Felix's point, though, it's the transparency between the two groups here that we're trying to establish, because we're trying to be transparent. And Jane, to speak to the point, when that resolution came up at the borough meeting, I had never heard of it before. Yes, it was on the agenda, but it was not discussed with our board. And if it had been, perhaps you would have had a better understanding of how our rates have been set and how they impact the people. So that is what we're speaking to at this point. So it's more to the point of the level of the communication between the two agencies.
And that would be something that I will.
But let's be clear. This resolution does nothing to our rates.
Nothing.
Nothing.
And that's it. And I think that's, we'll be clear on that. But I do think to that point, that is a point that tomorrow Ed, Terry, and I can certainly make, and just say, kind of that communication, we would like it to flow a little more freely both ways,
right.
Especially when some of those
Mike
things come up.
Mike Peters should weigh in on this conversation, on his interpretation of the.
But to speak to the point, I think it piqued all our interests, because we are so cognizant of the importance of rates, how they're perceived, and how they're set in the areas of our jurisdiction. So that's why.
No,
we have agonized.
But I think
we have agonized over these rates for over the years. So my point is, it is something that's important to us. It's something that we've considered in our governance for the past 10 years and so yes, it is important. So.
And it means nothing.
Okay, so I think we should get to Terry's piece, what he put together and circulated to us today. I don't know if anyone had a chance to review that, if there are any.
Can I ask the chair, do you want me to make a few comments?
Sure, Terry, and I'm sorry, everyone's kind of frozen on my screen. I think I'm going to have to tell my husband to get off the internet or whatever my family is doing.
Make sure all my cats are off.
But please go ahead.
Streaming
I'm kind of missing the videos on some of you. I apologize.
All my cats are off the internet, Janine.
Well, if you'd like, I can say a few things. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to read that little report. When I approached this, my objective was to not compete with the Aquas and the Pennsylvania American Waters and whatnot. Not compete directly, but to get our borough to begin to look at the authority differently, more as a partnership, a partner, and a partner in a partnership through which the borough derives significant benefits, including financial benefits. Okay. So my
Mike, are you
first
typing?
my first thought was, well, since the borough has seized our assets, they are now our landlord.
I'm sorry, Mike. Could you mute? You're typing away, and all I hear is banging.
Okay.
Go ahead.
We good?
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So now they're our landlord. It's a very common thing to pay one's landlord rent. And in this particular case, I'm suggesting that the authority consider just that. I threw some numbers out there for discussion purposes, and as I move through these proposals, I want to emphasize that I take no pride in authorship. I'm putting thoughts out there, ideas out there, trying to get the conversation going. You, at the end of the day, are the ones that are going to determine your comfort levels for all of these items that we're discussing. But here's a start. And I'm suggesting that the rental income be somewhere in the neighborhood of $200,000 a year, payable semi-annually. The term of the lease can be 20 years, can be 30 years, 40, 50, it can be 99. So I pulled something kind of like in the middle and threw 50 out there. Every 10 years. We can have a clause in the lease agreement that allows it to be renegotiated, the amount to be renegotiated. But there needs to be certain parameters established within the lease, cost of living parameters, whatever. Now, if you would seriously consider that option, I would be strongly recommending to you that you would have to sooner rather than later raise rates in the 11% range. What does that mean to the borough? That's a $10 million offer. That's guaranteed $10 million over that 50-year period. And that's not chump change. Okay? So let me throw that out there first. And if you'd like, Janine, can we get some feedback from the
Sure.
board? Want me to keep
Sure.
going?
And I was even going to
Can
say
I-
that, Carol, can I just say, I was going to say
For doing that.
two things. Well, and I was going to say one, and then I lost my second, but I'm sure it'll come back to me at some point. The first thing I was going to say is, again, this is an option that really wasn't available to us until this ordinance conveyed or the assets of the authority to the borough. Up until then, we kind of own all of our own stuff and we didn't have this option. So this was an option that kind of became newly available to us, in an effort to get the borough, an income stream from us. And I think the other thing that we want to, or I guess I wanted to say, I remembered what it is, Carolyn, it'll be short, is that, we can't go toe to toe with these offers, whatever these private company offers are going to be. I mean, I think we're all, I'll throw out the numbers, 20-30 million dollars. I mean, that's not something that we as an authority, we can't counter that in a lump sum way. So what we're, as Terry indicated, what we're trying to do is present options that provide a source of revenue to the borough in a meaningful way, but we can't compete at a certain level. And it's just not fair. And I think, to speak to Terry's point on the rates, and I've said this, I think, to all of you, and I will say it, I will really say it to anybody, because it's truly how I see it. Whatever happens in this situation, whether the authority is sold, whether it is not sold, however we look at it, the citizens of Conshohocken Borough are going to be paying more to someone. That is the end result of this situation. It would either be higher taxes, which the borough has decided not to do. It will be an increased sanitary sewer fee, which we may have to renege on our 3-year rate freeze if the citizens of the borough want to keep us. Going on to the next option, it may be a stormwater fee, or at the end of the day, you're going to end up, after however many year rate freeze, paying a private company. At the end of the day, people are going to pay more. And to me, it is a question of, who do you want to pay? And I think that's the reality of the situation. And I think we all just have to kind of be prepared for that.
Well, just the services that have been sold to privatization, where the money goes out of the community to the profit sector, going to the stockholders rather than the community, their rates have gone up sometimes 150%. 150%, okay, which is more than taxes when you really tie it in there. So yes, it's a big deal. Just want that for people's consideration.
No, and I mean, I think we made this promise on this 3-year rate freeze, and I would love to honor that. I think we all would have, but given the situation, that may not be possible. And I think, I just want people to know that at the end of the day, you're going to pay somebody. So if the question is, if you want to pay us to keep us, then that hopefully would be an option to people.
Well, Janine, you're correct. The money has to come from somewhere. But again, it comes down to whether you want to sell a municipal asset that will be gone. Once it's sold, it's gone. And
yep, no, and I agree. I mean, and so hopefully hopefully these options will be, like I said, while we can't go toe to toe in a flat fee lump sum amount, hopefully what our collaboration and partnership with the borough going forward would be something for them to consider to retain us as an authority. So yeah, I mean, I thought it was an excellent proposal, Janine, that you and Terry. Thank you, Terry. So I mean, so going to that point, so Terry, you're going to say, like, on this particular piece, and we'll kind of go to the next piece next, but on the rental income, what are the thoughts? Felix, do you have thoughts on this? Jane?
I do. Sorry, I appreciate your creativity on trying to come up with something. This particular proposal, I'm not a big fan of. I think that there's a couple reasons why. One, the history of this authority. You have to remember, we didn't pay for this authority. This came from a federal grant. In 1980, I think it was 82, we received a federal grant to build a new sewer authority. So for the borough to turn around and take over the assets, fine, but then to put a rent on top of it for us to manage it, I'm not, I think that's a poor utilization of resources. I think that's just a hidden tax that we're passing through to our ratepayers. And I think that's not the calculus that I want to put into paying my sewer authority. And I think that, you know, if you're going to raise taxes, raise taxes. If you're going to try to hide taxes, then let us have pay rent. But I don't want to be a part of hiding taxes. I'd rather be a part of, you know, providing high quality services at a very reasonable rate. And I think that's what we've established. So I'm not in favor of paying rent to run the authority. I think there's better offers out there. So I don't think this is one I want to pursue. My 2 cents.
And I would disagree. I think it's a viable option. At this point, I would really love to see us keep the authority, but it might come down to dollars and cents. In sense, does this make sense? And I think this could make sense for the borough.
I do want to say, Jane, that I just think it's a very bad idea to consider selling a municipal asset. I think it's short-sighted, and I think it's poor governance.
We're talking about Terry's proposal for paying rent to the authority as an income.
Carol, what is your thought? What are your thoughts on the rent?
I understand exactly what Felix is saying, and I agree with him. But in you know, we're between a rock and a hard place here, so we're trying to come up with some sort of helping out here, since you know, it seems that we're on the bidding block for the roads. You know, so I think but as Felix says, what it will incur, it is a hidden tax. The rates will go up to pay for the roads. I don't think it's the best way to do it, but I think it was I think Terry has a great idea there, if that's what it takes for us to keep this in our, you know, in our place. So, you know, I mean, I think it's
that's my view. I think, Carol,
that's
my feeling too. I think Felix, in theory, in concept, and you know, kind of the ethics of it all, yes, I agree with your statement. I agree with what you're saying. I think, to Carol's point, though, is where I come out at this point. Like I said, you know, just a few minutes ago, the city people are going to pay someone. So it's a question of who are you going to pay, and in order to keep this asset, if that's what we have to do, then I think that is something that we have to go to the table with, because.
Well, I don't think this is keep the asset or not keep the asset decision on whether we pay rent. I think if the borough wants to keep the asset, they keep the asset. Us paying rent is a form of a hidden tax.
I think they're looking obviously for some kind of revenue generation. Through the sale is a revenue generation, so we have to try to assist in ways to create revenue for them.
Well, then let's look at other options to generate revenue.
Yeah, I
think
Felix is right about that part of it, because there's going to be other, you know, we're putting this together. I want you to get a sense of what direction that I would recommend we go at this time. Once we present this to the borough, I hope they would come back with comments and thoughts, and they may come up with things that we haven't thought of. And
fair enough.
And that may totally, they may allow us to say, no, we don't want to do this. No, we don't care about the rent. I would be surprised if they said that they don't care about the rent, but who knows what they're going to come up with, folks. That's, you know, we're kind of flying blind in a way right now, so this is the best we can do. So I would recommend you just keep it on the table, and we move forward with it. And then when we get to the very end, and hopefully we do, there's going to be a package. There's going to be a number of things we're going to need to talk about. You're going to need to vet, and you're going to need to be comfortable with. So if it's okay, can I move to a little bit more?
Yep.
The second one.
Fine with me.
Yeah, this one. So the rent is straightforward. Philosophically, I appreciate what everybody's saying, and everybody is correct about this. Now, the stormwater initiative. That's a very interesting one. Let me share a story, condensed version of it. The folks down the road, Warminster Township, went through a long process. The township supervisors there, they put out a proposal to sell the sewer system. It's my understanding it became a political hot potato, and that ultimately the supervisors there backed off the sale. Now, I want to. This is important, at least in my way of thinking. In the case of Warminster Township, they're having an extraordinary amount of financial difficulties, big time. All right. So, in fact, is they may at some point be declared a distressed community, and so their need for funds is quite acute. That I view as being different than our borough's situation. Our borough's in solid financial shape, and they're needing more money for infrastructure, capital improvements, and things like that. So at some point when the deal fell through, it's my understanding that there was communication between the Water and Sewer Authority and the township, and a deal has been struck where the authority, the Water and Sewer Authority, will purchase the stormwater management system of the township. And they, it's my understanding, will be paying the township $6 million. And those transactions are being finalized as we speak. And if anybody has any other information, if anything that I've said is incorrect, please jump in right now, because this is my best understanding of what has happened there.
And I got a question in regards to maybe Mike or Fred can answer this. Has the DEP or the EPA started to crack down on townships and municipalities on their stormwater systems?
They clearly have through the MS4 program. I mean, there never was any very limited municipal regulation, and it's probably going on 5 years now that they've had the MS4 program, where the DEP and EPA, DEP more, is taking it, and it was a result of the Chesapeake Bay and other strategies to get show compliance. So yes, there is much more regulatory compliance than there ever was.
And
Do you see
I would
this
agree
as
with
a-
that. And especially where you're, a lot of it depends on where you're tributary to, where your stormwater is going. If you're in if you're discharging to an already compromised basin or stream, they're paying more attention to you.
Say Plymouth Creek that floods out Caldwell Lane?
Well, most of our stormwater goes to the Schuylkill, so a lot.
Does
of
it, Mike?
But not all of it. But
No, I mean,
well,
eventually
that's where it ends up. So.
Right. I think what's the retention time in Conshohocken stormwater? Is it under an hour between hitting the ground and ending up in the Schuylkill? I don't think we have one retention program in stormwater in the borough right now. I didn't know if we're on if they grade stormwater systems and if we have a current rating at this point in our community.
That would be a question for Ray Sokolowski.
And I mean, are we looking at a pending DEP eventually at some point? Because I know our stormwater is not in the healthiest situations. I don't think it's ever been touched, and I think it was actually maybe Hurricane Agnes that they did some major reconfiguration of our stormwater system.
Right, and I would agree with you that stormwater, streets, gutters, all of it has been neglected in the past. And when we did the study, on our infrastructure, the stormwater rebuild is included, because it makes no sense to fix the roads if the stormwater issues aren't corrected first, because the water just puddles and freezes and destroys the roads. So that is a big part of the expense.
Okay. So we're looking at either, what I'm proposing is either we purchase or lease. That these are things that I would have to discuss. We would have to discuss with Mike. The borough's stormwater system, but for $1. I can't see where we can be. Again, it was important for me to tell you the backstory of Warminster and what's going on there that doesn't apply here. And I don't see how we can be offering any sort of money, whether it's certainly not 6 million or $1 million, for the purchase of that system. I am going to stick my neck out and say there's going to be a lot of capital improvements. If we somehow acquire this, then we're going to be responsible. And we're going to end up having to raise money to pay for those capital improvements. And we cannot, and I can't see us affording to pay for X number of millions to purchase this system. And then there's a small problem, just a small problem, that at this point in time, well, in our case, in order to borrow money, we typically go to revenue notes or revenue bonds. Mostly around here, revenue notes. We need revenues in order to support debt service payments. So I think we'd have a tricky time trying to drum up a couple, $3 billion for a purchase when at the time we're purchasing it, we can't clearly define what our revenue streams are going to be. But that's an aside.
Mike, on that revenue generating, can't we generate become a stormwater taxing as part of our mission? So we would set up.
Yeah, I'll get to that here. I'm sorry, Felix. Yeah, I'll get to that. But I'm talking about right now, this moment. There's a little bit of the timing thing I'm trying to explain as well. And we'll get to the fee here in a second. So again, either purchase or lease, and we're going to take care of everything. Their catch basins, storm sewers. If they have retention basins or detention basins, dams, the whole 9 yards, it's on us. Now, what I believe the best process, if in fact you're thinking, yeah, let's do this, that I would strongly recommend that we would follow a procedure that Cheltenham Township is going through right now as we speak. And as you know, I spent about 6 months in Cheltenham and was in the middle of some of these things. They had ultimately, after RFPing the service out, have hired a consulting firm, brings on engineers, and it's a consulting firm who has been there and done that. They've done several of these projects, and they would establish a budget for you, and very importantly, develop the basis for a fee, a stormwater fee. Now, for tonight's purposes, we don't need to get into a bunch of different types of fees. Mike I have included Mike's analysis of this situation, and he did define the various different types of fees that could be levied. But the important thing is, to answer Felix's question, it's technically not a tax. It's philosophical, but it's a fee. And it's a fee that would be specific to and only for supporting O&M and capital costs for the stormwater management system. At the end of the day, we would have to separate stormwater management from our sewer. We'd have two different funds, completely separate. Um, and one has to, each one of these functions has to support itself. Sewers have to support themselves, itself, and as does the stormwater piece of it. The study could cost 100,000 or more, a little bit more. I don't think too much more. And it's a process that's going to take time. It will take several months. It's nothing that you can do overnight, nor do you want to. Because if what you want, I would strongly recommend what you do is that you're able to demonstrate that you very, very thoroughly thought this through. First, you're hiring very qualified people to perform the study. They're giving you the recommendations. You're picking A, B, or C, and then you're implementing it. And just in case somebody comes along 6-7 months down the road and challenges it, then you can bring these folks in to help you defend that thing. And as we need to make that look as professional and as thorough as possible. Then, of course, the final step is to actually implement the fee and then begin to create our own stormwater department within our authority operation. Mike has also pointed out that we'd have to change our bylaws and certain legal matters like that. A couple of my comments. It's different. It's different than what you're doing now, but really not all that much. I think that our moving from the sanitary to the storm sewer end of things isn't a bridge too far. And in many respects, I do believe it's a natural fit for us. And it's not like we're the only authority out there that would be handling stormwater related matters. What's the advantage to the borough? Well, yeah, I could look at this. I've been on the other side, okay? And stormwater problems are a headache, just a complete pain. And if you're having to start to fix any kind of stormwater system, it can prove to be quite expensive. So I see this as our removing a big headache off the authority, taking that off their books. And I believe that there might be some possibilities of sharing employees, or we're actually contracting out with the Borough Public Works Department to perform certain storm-related types of activities for us. I think those are real possibilities. So we remove a headache from the authority. There's also an expense there. I don't know what that expense is. I don't know how much the authority spends per year truly on stormwater related matters. I know they'll have a few employees that will, at least part of their time, be working that, and they're spending X number of dollars on piping, whatever. Again, I don't know what those numbers are, but there would definitely be an expense savings for the borough, for the borough. So I'll categorize that as a significant pot sweetener, in my view. Any thoughts about that?
I concur with you, Terry. We've discussed this before, that we could take on the auspices of the stormwater. Board members, please correct me if I'm in error there. I think this is something that we discussed, that we could also align the stormwater with the paving that's to be done by the borough to save them some considerable costs there. So I concur with you.
I think it's a great idea, Barry. I think it would be very beneficial to our residents, and that's what we're all talking about. We serve the same residents, so I think that working together is going to get us a lot further. So I think they are very good ideas.
Jane, I jump in there. I think there's some true PR value to this too. Again, that's maybe not a dollar and cents thing per se, but it's a tangible benefit for everybody.
Right.
Jane, does the borough also have a pretty good idea what those numbers are based on that 30-year report that you guys put together? I think you had some stormwater numbers in there besides the road. Am I right on that?
The total package was about 31 million, but I don't know it in separate pieces. Again, Stephanie would have that information. That was for a total rebuild of the borough's roads, the storm sewers, gutters, everything.
And just remember, as I said before, that if you're to move in that direction, I'm strongly recommending you hire a consulting firm with engineers, and they would jump in and they would grab that information from the borough and plug that into the budget calculus.
Right. We had an extensive, very expensive study done by Karen McNair, who is contracted to the borough.
Okay, good.
Is that public information, Jane? That report? I didn't see it published.
Probably I think it's 18 months old now.
And that's the report you're basing off the $31 million for.
Again, those costs probably have gone up. The biggest saving was by contracting and doing one huge project. We saved about 20%. It was similar to what we did with all the playgrounds. We purchased all the equipment at one time, and we got a 20% discount on all our playground equipment.
And that report's available?
I would think so. Or if you need a copy, I'm sure they could lead you to it. I don't know if it's on the borough website anymore.
It was on the borough website at one time.
Right.
Carrie, can you get a copy of that for Felix? Carrie, can you get a copy of that report for Felix, please?
Okay.
Carol, I was gonna say, yeah, I think tomorrow that's something we can ask for as well. Because if this is something that's of interest, if this is an option that's of interest to the borough, then again, I think having that information so that we can drill down even further would be helpful.
So if I could just jump in for 1 second, and Fred will nod his head when I say this. Probably about 10 years ago, when the Authorities Act was expanded to include stormwater, everybody thought this was going to be the next wave for authorities, that everyone was going to take on stormwater. And everybody looked at it, and there were a lot of studies that were done. And then it all just kind of petered out because nobody, there were too many moving parts. Now, Philadelphia did it, and Philadelphia charges a monthly stormwater fee. And it's based on residential. And if you're a commercial entity, it's based on the size of your lot and the amount of impervious surface. And it generates a tremendous amount of money. So it can generate revenue for the authority. The authority, in turn, could, as Terry is saying, it could be $1 lease today, but once we determine, the revenue that it generates, that lease amount could be increased for the borough. So it could be a greater amount. And if Terry's right, that maybe we don't have borrowing power to give the borough $5 million today for the system. We could give them a steady revenue stream once we're able to determine the value of the system. Carol's also right that one of the added benefits of us taking over the stormwater is as we are upgrading the system, we would be doing a lot of paving of the roads. Because unlike a sewer pipe, which may be only a small piece of the road, when you're doing stormwater, it's usually on both sides of the road, and you're usually digging up most of your stormwater and your inlets, and then you're paving the whole road. So that could take some of that financial burden off of the township. And again, I also think what Terry said is true. There's an opportunity then to some cost sharing with borough public works employees who may be the ones who are doing of the cleaning out of the inlets and everything, and then we're paying them, or we're picking up their time for things along those lines. So it could be a significant cost saver for the borough, while also generating some revenue for the borough in time. So.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think for right now, there are two best options. I don't know how we want to proceed. If anyone has any additional thoughts on this piece of it, so I guess going into tomorrow's meeting, like I said, will be Terry, Ed, and myself who will be present. And we were going to, go and say, here, this is what we have. Obviously some of these things have to be flushed out more, particularly the stormwater piece, if that is really of interest. And see if we can, continue to pique the interest and work collaboratively with the borough, and hopefully, save our system and continue to operate autonomously. So I don't know. Does anyone have anything else?
I mean, Jane, is there anything else that you think we should, present that would be important to the board, the borough council, that we can stress and we can offer for the betterment of our community?
I think all the ideas presented tonight by Terry were very good. And I feel that just by making such a solid, I don't want to say deal, but such a solid proposal, I think that it gives us a really great place to go back and forth and figure out, and again, personally, I would love to keep the sewer authority. I live right here. I think it's very important to have local management. But when it comes down to our residents, we have to make the best decision for everyone. And we have 8,000 plus residents. So that's where it's going to be.
We have 8,100 residents, and I would prefer not to have my sewer rates raised by 150% with the sale, Jane. I'm just stating that. I think it's bad governance to sell the sewer authority.
Carol, okay.
I think it's fair that I can state that in this forum.
Well, I mean, so I guess, are there any, excuse me, are there any other questions or, that as board members you would like us to raise tomorrow? I mean, like I said, I would like to try to keep this, like I said, I think the communication issue that we discussed, even though the resolution is meaningless, let's say that one more time, just kind of the appearance of that and just working the transparency with us is something we will discuss. Presenting some of these options is something we will discuss. Is there anything else that anyone would like mentioned?
Well, we already discussed some of with Mike in terms of the interpretation of the ordinances. I'd like to get the the resolution and the ordinance that was passed. I'd like to get Mike Peters weighing in on what his intent is. In addition to that, I think a synopsis of the meeting distributed to the board members would be helpful in a timely manner, so that we know what was discussed and what items were receptive, if there is feedback from either side. I think that being updated on that at a timely manner.
No, I think that's very fair.
That's a great idea, Felix.
Yep. And so I guess then the last piece, and it is again a mailing that we had discussed previously. Due to the, I don't want to say expedited nature, but things are definitely moving, and obviously we're having a long discussion about this. I do think getting a mailing out to the ratepayers prior to our first quarter bill is a good idea. We can again include something in our newsletter when that goes out, but I think a one-page flyer essentially with information similar to what is on our website, updated with some facts would be important. But I would like to see that go out. I think we can circulate a draft for comment among the board. Terry, would you agree with that?
Yep.
And then hope to get that out. I would like to say, end of this week, beginning of next week. Shannon, maybe you can. I don't know. Someone can talk to the practicality of that.
Actually getting it in the mail, do you mean?
Yeah, getting it in the mail.
It's going to take a little more time than that.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe the week after-ish, towards the end of the week or the following week. Let me talk with my staff about that, see where we're at in terms of other things that we're doing. And we'll make this a priority. We understand its importance.
Thank you. So again, if everyone would if all board members would kind of look for that email from Terry and provide comments, that would be appreciated, because the sooner we get everybody to weigh in on that, the sooner it can go out. All right. I'll be honest, this wasn't quite as long as I thought it was going to be, so that's a good thing.
Move while we're ahead.
I know, right? That's good. Would anyone like to make a motion? Can we adjourn, or is there anything else that's missing that we need to discuss?
Make a motion to adjourn.
All right. Would you like to you're making it, Felix?
Yes.
All right. All right. Kara will second it.
Okay.
Shannon, are you on it?
Jane Flanagan,
Yes.
Felix Raimondo,
Yes.
Carol Smith,
Yes.
Janine Riley.
Yes.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Have a good night, all.
That motion passed.
See you guys.
Good night, everybody.
Okay.